Hi everyone, I'm Lady Teddy. I'm going to be reading to you guys from Magium, which is a text-based choose-your-own-adventure story app that's free for both Androids and iOS, and it's really, really good. There's a lot of different paths you could take, and I have a lot of respect for the author, so if you guys like this and are interested in actually hearing more of the story, I highly recommend you guys download it for yourself. Or if you don't want to, all of my previous read-throughs are on YouTube, so you could always just go and watch that as well. What I'm going to be doing is you can make choices. This is a good Smart Berry playthrough. So if the decisions are good or smart, I'm going to generally make the decision for everyone. If it's just sort of random, I'll allow other people, if there's anyone who wants to participate, I'll give you guys generally about a minute to make a suggestion. Otherwise, I know a lot of people, they just like listening to me read and fall asleep or relax, so there's absolutely no pressure to participate. If no one says anything, then I will just make the decision for everyone and continue with reading. Yes, normally I nap when I pull a 15-hour day. Yeah, I can't even imagine pulling 15-hour days. And look at you, Mr. Savage. Oh my gosh, we have two gentlemen in here, Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Savage. I know I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, Mr. Savage, but Savage Stick? Savage Stick? Yeah. Mr. Savage, unless there's a way that you would like me to say your name. Okay. Savvy? Alright, sounds good. That is much more simple. For the play, for reading, I have turned off all sound alerts, so I would not recommend anyone redeem anything like that unless you feel like wasting your points or bits. But you know, that's on you. And yeah, here we go. Yep, that looks like you're able to see it. Cool, cool, cool. Yes, I'm very ladylike, as you all know. Extremely ladylike. Nothing sus or childlike ever happens in this stream ever. No perverted jokes or innuendos or stupid puns. Just absolutely not. Not in my presence. Perv meter what? No. Uh-oh. Well, I think that's gone forever. Alright, so we're going to be starting chapter 2 of book 2. If anyone has any questions, because I know it's in the middle of the story, feel free to ask. The party, they just got sort of arrested, and now they're being led to cells because they're going to be forced to participate in a tournament that will happen in 3 days. So they're going to be living in basically the barracks of the arena where they're going to be fighting a bunch of people and animals, and just, you know, the person who's going to be leading the tournament wants them to die, so yeah. That's what's about to happen. They're being led to their cells. As soon as I want to start reading, suddenly my mouth is always super dry. I say this every single time. About to start reading, Marshmang, hello. Listen, Araka, Darren says as we walk towards the arena. Are you absolutely sure that the Eden you fought during the still winter is the same person as the one we're dealing with right now? I mean, it's been 600 years, right? No one would blame you if you were to make a confusion after all this time. Damn it, this is the third time you've asked me this exact same question. Araka says, yes, it is the same Eden from 600 years ago. Get it through your thick skull already. Darren, why are you finding this so hard to believe? Exactly. But in fantasy land, so there's gonna be fantasy stuff. But no magic. I mean, yes, magic, but they're not allowed to cast magic. It's all gonna be based on their fighting ability with no spellcasting. Darren, why are you finding this so hard to believe? Kate says. We already knew that he was 600 years old and that he was an old acquaintance of Araka and the Golden Fox. Given his power, it wasn't that big of a stretch to assume he was the one who defeated Araka all that time ago. It's not the fact that he could beat Araka that I find hard to believe, Darren says. It's the fact that he is known as the founder of this continent's civilization when all we've seen him do so far is wreak havoc for the sole purpose of his amusement. People change over time, Kate says. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Eden tell you that when you first met, that the reason he is keeping his eyes closed is because he got tired of seeing the ugliness of humanity? You've seen the way he acted around the Earl and the Ambassador of Allendor. It's clear that he no longer holds anything other than disgust and disdain for the inhabitants of Varathia. Leaving Eden aside, I say, shouldn't we rather be discussing our plans for the arena? Don't worry about the arena, Hadrick says. I alone should be more than enough to deal with whatever the ambassador can throw at us. Oh yeah? I say, and what if they separate us? Barry makes a good point, Darren says. The first thing we need to make sure of is that we can still communicate with each other, even if they decide to throw us in different cells. Darren takes off his backpack and he takes three transceivers out of it. Kate, Hadrick, Flower, take these, he says as he gives each of them a transceiver. Barry, you already have a transceiver. I don't think I've shown you this before, but you have a dial on the right side of your transceiver that you can use to change your calling frequency in order to match the signature frequency of one of the other transceivers. Does everyone see the dial that I'm talking about? Yes, we all answer. Good. Darren says, each of the transceivers is assigned a number which corresponds with its own unique signature frequency. Make sure you memorize everyone else's numbers so you'll know who to contact when the need arises. The numbers are engraved on the back of the transceivers. I look at the back of my transceiver and see I am assigned the number 2. When we exchange all of our numbers, I learn that Kate has number 3, Flower has number 4, and Hadrick has 5. Alright, now you all know your numbers, and as an aside, if you ever need to communicate with transceivers that weren't enchanted by me, there's a small button next to the dial which you can use to switch to normal frequencies. I'll be using the transceiver with the number 6. What about number 1? I ask. Darren pauses for a few seconds. That's the number of the transceiver I was using originally, Darren says in a low voice. The one I gave to Rose. Oh, I say, and then we all stay silent for a few moments. So, do we know for sure that they're going to allow us to keep our transceivers after we get sent to our cells? Hedrick asks. You will be allowed to keep any items you wish, the king's servant says, having overheard our discussions. You will each have your own personal cells in which you can store your belongings, but you will be allowed to carry items with you as well. What about weapons? Darren asks. Are we allowed to use our own weapons and armor during the fights in the arena? Yes, as long as your weapons don't cast any spells, you are allowed to use any weapons you have at your disposal, the servant says. What do you understand by casting spells? I ask. Would an item that enhances your physical abilities be considered spellcasting? It depends on the nature of the item, the servant says. Without knowing what item in particular you are referring to, I cannot give you a definitive answer to your question. Tell him about the stat device. Don't tell him about the stat device. I think good Smart Berry would go either way, but knowing that there are spies everywhere, I feel like he would probably wait to tell anyone about it. And again, I have played through, but if someone wants to tell him about the stat device, now is your chance. I'll give y'all about a minute. Otherwise, I'm going to pick don't tell him about the stat device. All right. I pull the stat device out of my pocket and show it to him. I'm talking about this item, I say. Do you know of it? The servant smiles. Yes, I am familiar with it, he says. Do not worry. The stat booster's effect does not count as spellcasting. The magic detectors in the arena will most definitely ignore it. Hey Barry, Darren says, and both the king's servant and I turn our heads towards him. The king's servant's name is also Barry. It's an ongoing joke that Barry is an extremely common name, so it's weird that his name is Barry. Hey Barry, Darren says, and both the king's servant and I turn our heads towards him. How long can we delay our trip to the arena? Darren says, looking at the king's servant. Can it wait half an hour? I was thinking I could cast some basic sharpness and durability enchantments on my friend's daggers if I find a shop that sells elven steel along the way. There's enough time, the king's servant says. If you're looking for a shop that sells enchanting materials, there should be one in the marketplace we'll be reaching shortly. Why do you need elven steel specifically? I asked Darren. Elven steel is the best quality steel that money can buy, Darren says, and basic enchantments like sharpness and durability are highly dependent on the quality of the materials used for enchantment. Is there any chance you could enchant my crossbow as well? You are not allowed to use ranged weapons within the arenas of Varathia, the king's servant says. I'll be honest with you, Barry, Darren tells me. Even if ranged weapons were allowed, I would still not recommend getting your crossbow enchanted. It would be much better to buy a new one. Basic enchantment just isn't a good substitute for poor craftsmanship. With daggers, it's different because the quality of the metal is much more important than the way the blade was made. Koza Rogue, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in. How are you doing today? Samo, hello. How are you? Why do you keep talking about basic enchantments? Hadrick says. Aren't you supposed to be one of the most skilled enchanters in the world? Why don't you just cast some of those crazy enchantments you have on your sword on Barry and Kate's daggers? Darren frowns at him. The more advanced the enchantment, the more time and resources it requires, he says. It would take me weeks to cast the enchantments I used on my sword, and it would cost a small fortune to acquire the needed materials. I doubt that I'll be doing anything other than basic enchantments for the duration of this tournament. Barry and Kate, give me your daggers. I will enchant them as soon as we reach that shop. Once he found the shop, Darren went in, and he didn't come out until exactly half an hour had passed. After Darren got out of the shop, he first gave Kate her dagger, and then he stopped in front of me with his hand held out, looking as if he were expecting some sort of payment. That will be 10 gold coins, Darren says. You can pay it with money from the Western continent if you want. You're charging me money? I ask him, a little surprised. Well, what did you expect? Darren says. It's not like I was given all of that elven steel for free, you know. But you didn't ask Kate for money, I say. That's because I didn't happen to see her pocketing a few dozen expensive gems in a certain ogre fortress a few days ago, Darren says. You, on the other hand, should have money to spare. So that's how it is, I say with a grin. Cough it up, Darren says, with his hand still held out. Fine, I say, as I place 10 gold coins in Darren's palm and then take back my dagger. Good morning, everyone. This is giving me Thor Ragnarok kind of vibes. Really? I haven't heard that one yet. That's cool. I liked that movie. I like that vibe. It took us about 2 more hours to get from the marketplace to the arenas. Once we reached our destination, we waved goodbye to the king's servant, and we went inside a small building near the arena, which we were told was the main office. The room we entered looked more like the inside of a prison than an office, and there was a man sitting at the desk in front of us who seemed to be arranging some papers when we came in. The man paid us no mind until he finished what he was doing, and then he got up and greeted us with a curt nod. I was told that you'd be coming here tonight, he says with a disinterested tone. Only 3 of you will be participating, am I correct? 4, Hadrick says with a wide grin as he hands his admission letter from the king to the desk worker. I see, the desk worker says after he reads the letter. Very well then, given that I'm the only one who is still working at this late hour, I will have to ask you to wait patiently in this lobby while I lead each of you to your individual cells. Can't we just all go at once? Hadrick asks. No, the desk worker says. The ambassador of Allendor insisted that neither of you are to know the locations of each other's cells. He also made sure that you are each placed into separate divisions so that you cannot work together during the arena events. Divisions? Darren asks, confused. We'll start with the Lasathi, the desk worker says, ignoring Darren. He walks to a door behind him and then he turns to me. This way, he says. I take one last look at everyone else and then I go to follow the desk worker. Good luck, Barry. Good luck, Barry, Flower shouts as I head through the door. Petal and I will be cheering for you from the audience, and I'm sure Uraka will too. Once the door closes behind me, I start to walk slowly behind the desk worker as we both begin to make our way down a very long flight of stairs. We didn't exchange any words while we traversed the dark corridors beneath the arena. With all of the twists and turns we took, it was hard to tell if I could still find my way back by myself. The torches inside the underground tunnels were dimly lit, and all of the doors looked the same. After a long period of silence, the desk worker finally chooses to speak. There are currently 2 empty cells left in your division, he says. Cell number 3 and cell number 5. They are located in opposite directions of the recreational area. I haven't been ordered to place you in any specific cell. Place you in any specific cell of the 2. Which one would you prefer? I don't know, I say. What's the difference between the 2 of them? There is no difference, the desk worker says bluntly. No difference at all? I ask. None whatsoever. So why are you asking me then? I'm asking you so you can make a decision. Now choose. Which will it be? Cell number 3 or cell number 5? Cell number 3, cell number 5, tell them that I don't care either way. I will probably go with number 5, but if someone else would like to make a decision, now is your chance. You have about a minute, otherwise I will just keep going, no pressure. Alright, so you guys want to go with cell number 3 then? I guess I'll go with cell number 3 then, I say. Very well, the desk worker says. Cell number 3 is located on the left side of the recreational area. Its number is written on the door. He stops in front of a door and he pulls a key out of his pocket. This is the key to your cell, he says as he hands me the key. You are advised to leave your belongings inside your cell and to lock the door when you are away. You can choose to spend most of your time locked inside your individual cell if you wish, but you will be required to spend at least 2 hours a day in the recreational area during the recreational period in order to learn to get along with your new teammates. The desk worker then pulls another key out of his pocket, and he uses it to open the door in front of him. This door will lead you to the recreational area of your division, he says. I recommend that you go directly to sleep because your next recreational period is scheduled for tomorrow morning. I nod to him and then go through the open door. Farewell, the desk worker says as he closes the door behind me. The room I am now finding myself in is only being lit by a few candles. The recreational area appears to be empty except for one particularly bulky man wearing leather armor who is now steadily approaching me. I've been waiting for you, the man says in a menacing tone. I heard that they'd be bringing you in tonight. I heard that they'd be bringing you in tonight. Do I know you? I ask him, confused. No, I don't see why you would, the bulky man says as he stops a few feet in front of me. I don't know who you are either. Then why were you waiting for me? I say. Because I've heard the guards talking, the man says. They were talking about a group of mages who killed the Earl of Allendor, and then I heard them say that a member of that group would be sent to our division tonight. I'll have to admit that I wasn't expecting a Stillwater. I remain silent. There would be no point in correcting him. I'd much rather have everyone think that I'm an all-powerful Stillwater than give away the fact that I'm not a mage at all. It doesn't matter, though, the bulky man continues. You may well be one of the 4 sages for all the good it will do you. Magic is not allowed in here. I could very well crush your puny head with the with my bare hands, and you won't be able to do anything about it." "Now, why would you want to do that?" I ask him. "Aren't we supposed to be part of the same team?" I'm gonna save here. I think that I'll be good, but... The man's face contorts into a snarl at the sound of my words. "Do you have any idea what you've done, you little bastard?" the man shouts. "Nope," I say, "no idea whatsoever. Why don't you explain it to me?" "Oh, I'll explain it to you," the man says, grinding his teeth. "Your little stunt with that noble has sealed all of our fates. I heard the guards saying that the next arena event will be the greatest in all of history. Greatest in all the history of Varathia. They're not expecting any of us to make it out alive. They are sending us all to our deaths, just to make sure they also kill you in the process." The man is now clenching his fist so hard that blood is starting to drip out of it. While the two of us were talking, the doors leading to the individual cells were opened one by one, and people who had been woken up by the sound of the bulky man's voice were now stepping out of their rooms to watch the show. "The only reason why I came to Thilius," the bulky man says, "was because I heard the Gnome King would rarely let the arena events in his city endanger the lives of the gladiators. I came here because I thought there was some easy money to be made, but now I'm just sitting here waiting for my execution, cursing my fate, cursing you." "Why don't you just leave then?" I say. "You think I didn't try?" The man shouts, even louder than before. "The owner of the arena isn't letting any of us go. It's the first time in years when he's being allowed to make the show as deadly as he wants. Do you know that he's been collecting rare beasts and keeping them in the underground tunnels for the past 10 years, waiting for a chance to parade them in front of an audience? Well, now that he's finally been given permission, the man is planning to make us fight every single one of them. He wants to make this the crowning moment of his career. He doesn't care about what the King of Thilius will do if he goes overboard. As long as this one show is successful, he may as well die for all he cares. And so can we." "Get a hold of yourself," I tell him. "You're acting as if we're being sent to the gallows, not a gladiatorial event. I didn't come here to waste time wallowing in self-pity. I came here to win." After hearing what I had to say, the bulky man completely loses the little self-control he had left, and he swings his right fist at my face with full force. Toughness check failed, level 2. Strength check failed. Strength check successful, level 2. I use my left hand to parry his fist, and then I quickly punch him in the stomach before he gets the chance to launch a second attack. The strength of my blow completely took away the man's breath and sent him to his knees. About 10 seconds of staring blankly ahead of him and gasping for air, the bulky man finally recovers and he gets up on his feet. For a few seconds, the man simply stands there looks at me in pure astonishment without saying anything. "Well," I say, "aren't you going to attack me again?" "Maybe I was wrong about you, Stillwater," the bulky man says in a tone suggesting he's still trying to get over the shock of what he just witnessed. He then puts both of his hands on my shoulders, and he looks at me with the hope of a man who's had not dared to hope any longer. "Maybe you were right," he says. "Maybe we can win this, as long as we work together." "Well, we are part of the same team. How about you apologize for attacking me first?" So I think that Goodberry would probably go with this one. So I'm inclined to do this one, but if y'all really want to make him apologize, I'll do it. But I feel like Goodberry let bygones be bygones. So anyways, you guys have about a minute. Are you not interested, Mr. Savage? Or Savvy? Alright, we can go with the apologize. How about you apologize for attacking me first? The man starts to laugh and he takes his hands off of me. If it's an apology you want, Stillwater, then you can have it, he says. I'm not ashamed of admitting my mistake. I should not have assumed that you were weak just because you were a mage, and I should not have attacked you without reason. Now, will you fight alongside me in the arena? I guess so, I say. We are part of the same team after all. That we are, the man says with a wide grin on his face as he gives me one long look full of respect. With these last words, the bulky man turns away from me and he heads towards his cell. Of the 4 people that were spectating our fight, 2 of them are now Of the 4 people that were spectating our fight, 2 are now going back to their cells, 1 is heading towards me, and the last one is still standing by the door, watching me intently. The one who is heading towards me is a man about my age, who is wearing his hair in a ponytail, and who has a way of smiling that reminds me of Eden. The one that remained by the door watching me is a girl with long silver hair who appears to be no older than 20. The man with the ponytail stops in front of me and he smiles politely. I see that you were able to hold your own against Bruce even without your magic, he says. Impressive! Not many would dare to face him head on like you did just now. May I ask you your name? Premonition check failed, level 2. Yeah, it's Barry, I say. Barry? The man asks, a little surprised. That's an unusual name for a mage. So I've been told. Once again, Barry is an unbelievably common name, apparently. And most people, even regular humans, are able to sense auras, so they can tell when someone's a mage. So usually when parents recognize that their baby is a mage, they give them just like a super obnoxious, fancy name to show off that their baby is a mage. So every time someone thinks that he's a Stillwater, which is an extremely powerful type of mage, and then they find out his name is Barry, people make comments. Because Barry is not a fancy, obnoxious name. So I've been told. Forgive me, I didn't mean to sound rude. It's just that most of the mages I've met in the past have had very unique names. Most parents who... he's doing it now. Most parents who find out that they have a mage in the family feel the need to show it off in any way they can, so they usually give them pretentious-sounding names like Zalner or Vazaroth. It's almost like a tradition. But to give you such a common name as Barry... My parents have never been the type to follow tradition. I see, the man says, smiling as he extends his hand towards me. My name is Wilhelm. Pleased to meet you. I shake the man's hand and he keeps smiling at me with a friendly expression on his face. Listen, Wilhelm says, I know that you haven't really gotten the best of receptions here in our division, but I personally think that there's nothing worse than having a fight with a teammate before a life-threatening event such as this. I just wanted to let you know that I'm on your side. Thanks for letting me know. Sorry, but I prefer to work alone. Good Barry would definitely go with this one. And I think Smart Barry too. Thanks for letting me know, I say. Well, that's all I wanted to say for tonight, Wilhelm says. We should both go to sleep. I hear that the recreation period is starting early tomorrow. Yes, I've heard that too. I say, have a good night. Same to you, Wilhelm says, as he starts heading towards his cell. After Wilhelm closes his door, the girl with the silver hair watches me for another few seconds, and then she goes inside her room, shutting the door behind her. I decide that there's no use in lingering around any longer, so I head towards my room as well. When I get inside my cell, I see that the only piece of furniture available to me is a bed made entirely out of stone. I lock the door with the key I got from the desk worker. I throw my backpack on the ground, and then I go to sit down on the bed. The only source of light in the room appears to be coming from a very small window above me, which gives me a direct view towards the corridor outside the recreation area. There doesn't seem to be any movement in the tunnels outside of my cell. The guard must either be sleeping or patrolling in a different corridor. I take a sweater out of my backpack and I use it as a makeshift pillow to put on my cold stone bed. As soon as I place my head on it, I fall asleep and I wake up about 7 hours later to the sound of a guard's voice coming from outside my cell. "Get up," the guard says. "It's recreation time. Go recreate. Come on, get out of here." I reluctantly get out of bed, put my sweater in my backpack, and then head back towards the recreation area. I make sure to lock the door behind me on my way out, and then I head towards the corner of the room where there are no people around. I take a quick look around the room to see who else they placed in my division. Aside from Bruce and Wilhelm, who I met yesterday, there's the silver-haired girl that was staring at me, and then there are two more individuals that look both like the gladiator versions of Cutthroat Dave. The two thugs seem to be the only ones who are actually talking to each other. The other three are each standing somewhere as far as possible from everyone else, leaning with their backs against the walls, their arms crossed, waiting for the recreation period to be over. What am I supposed to do now? I can't say that I feel like talking with any of these people. What is there to talk about? We weren't even told what the first round will be like. How are we supposed to make a strategy? Maybe I should just go back and get a book to read or something. As I stand there and think about going back to my cell, Bruce suddenly moves away from the wall and he starts heading towards me. When he stops in front of me, I see that he has an unusually serious look on his face. "Listen," he says, "I saw that you were talking to Wilhelm yesterday, after your fight with me, so I wanted to give you a warning." "A warning?" I say. "Yeah," Bruce says, "about Wilhelm. He might seem like an ordinary guy to you, but in reality, he's a trained assassin. I can tell by the way he moves and speaks. These assassin types can never be trusted. They're not real warriors like you and me. The only way they know how to fight is by stabbing people in the back. You should be careful around him. Don't believe anything he says." "Huh," I say. "That's good to know. I'll look out for him. Thanks." Just make sure that you don't get yourself killed before the arena," Bruce says. "You're the only one besides me who can actually put up a fight in this blasted division." Bruce then pats me on the shoulder, and he goes back to where he was standing at the beginning. Just as I was about to go get that book, it is now Wilhelm who is approaching me with a determined look on his face. "Listen," Wilhelm says, "I'm not sure exactly what you were talking about with Bruce, but you should be careful around him." "I should?" I ask him. "Yes," Wilhelm says. "You already saw the way he treated you yesterday. He's the kind of person who likes to act before he thinks, and these types of individuals are always dangerous. He might act friendly towards you now, but who knows what he'll do tomorrow. When you're up against unpredictable brutes that prefer to rely on their fists instead of their reason, you can never know when they'll turn against you." That's nice, I tell him, but I have a feeling that this isn't what you came here to talk to me about, is it? No, it isn't, Wilhelm says. What I wanted to tell you is that, from what I've heard, in a few hours from now, the ambassador and the arena owners should be discussing important matters about the organization of the arena events. The guards from this place have a habit of overhearing these types of conversations, and they usually like to discuss them amongst themselves. Make sure you pay close attention to what they're saying when they're outside your cell. I will do the same. I see, I say. I'll keep that in mind. All right, Wilhelm says. That's all I wanted to tell you. I'll make sure to let you know if I hear anything. I hope you will do the same. Of course, I say. I suddenly realized that the girl with silver hair was staring at me again. In fact, I think she's been staring at me for a long time. Wilhelm notices me looking towards the girl and he gives me a smirk. I wouldn't waste my time trying to talk to that one, Wilhelm says. We've all tried, but she wouldn't say a word. I think that our little silver-haired princess is either mute or she's taken a vow of silence of some sort. Either way, I doubt that you'll get anything out of her. First Colosseum vibes, then Thor Ragnarok, and now Squid Games vibes. I've never actually seen Squid Games. He then bows politely, and then he goes back towards his corner of the room. As Wilhelm walks past the girl on his way back, she pays him no mind and she keeps looking directly at me. Okay, now I'm certain that she's doing it on purpose. But what does she want from me? Does she want me to go talk to her? I guess there's only one way to find out. I calmly start heading towards her while paying close attention to her reactions. The girl seems unfazed by my decision to approach her, and she keeps looking me in the eyes even after I stopped in front of her. Now that I take a better look at the girl, I see that she is at least 1 head shorter than me, and that she has a very frail constitution. I can see why Wilhelm would choose to call her a princess. She definitely doesn't look like a fighter. Her clothes, however, are nothing close to what a princess might wear. She's wearing a simple beige blouse, short leggings that seem comfortable to move in, and wooden sandals. Despite her frail-looking body, the girl is wearing 2 knives on her belt, and her arms and legs are full of bruises, which indicates that she's likely been in a fight shortly before she was incarcerated. Seeing that the girl has had no intention of saying anything, I take it upon myself to initiate a conversation. So, do you want to tell me why you've been staring at me the past 5 minutes? I ask her bluntly. The girl gives me no sign of having heard me, and she keeps looking at me without any change in her expression. Well, I say, aren't you going to say anything? Still no response. Wilhelm was right. This is pointless. Squid Games is fun. You should try it sometime. I watched the first episode and I found it very depressing, and my mental health was too bad to continue watching. Maybe I'll restart it now that my mental health is doing better, but just based off of the first episode, it looks like something I would be interested in, but at the same time, not something that I would enjoy, if that makes any sense. Maybe after the first episode. Slim, thank you for the hydrate. Good morning. It's good to see you. How are you doing? finally on the way home. Were you on a trip somewhere? At a hotel just north of Atlanta. Sounds like fun. Oh, you went back to Florida? Why? I turn away to leave, but then I suddenly feel something pulling on my sleeve. When I turn back, I see that the girl is now holding me by my shirt sleeve, and there is a blue-colored writing floating in mid-air in front of her face. The writing is in the common language, and it says simply, "Wait." The writing then disappears, and it is replaced with a new text, this time saying, "Is it true what they say about you?" What do you mean? I ask, looking at the girl. What do they say about me? Just like before, the previous phrase is now being replaced by a new text, which says, "They say that the reason why you were brought here is because you attacked a noble. Is that true?" Yeah, that would be the main gist of it, I say. But why attack a noble? A blue writing in the air says. Didn't you know how dangerous it would be to attack a noble in Varathia, let alone kill one? We did, I say, but we were trying to free a slave. And either way, that bastard had it coming. Florida vacation. Had a massive cold and pink eye in both eyes, so was miserable for the whole 10 days. That sounds like a fantastic vacation. Wow. I'm very sorry to hear that. I hope you're feeling better now. Are you alone? Do you still have pink eye? Because driving with pink eye sounds a little dangerous. Oh, you still had, stuff in Florida? Well, that's good. Good to get more of your stuff. The writing disappears, but this time there is a short pause before the next text appears. You don't seem to like our nobles very much, do you? The writing says. Oh, I hate them with a passion, I say. The girl smiles. It is the first time that I see an actual change in her facial expression. I see, the writing says. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Layla, and I have also been brought here because I tried to free a slave from a noble. The girl then extends her hand towards me. I'm Barry, I say as I shake her hand. Pleased to meet you. Barry, I have a favor to ask of you, the writing says. Could we continue our conversation inside of my cell? There's something else that I want to ask you, and I'd rather do it in private. Accept to go inside her cell? Do not accept to go inside her cell. I feel like good Barry would, like smart Barry could do either, but good Barry would go into her cell. But if someone would like to disagree, I will listen. Y'all have about a minute until I make the decision. Feeling a lot better, but not 100%. I'm sorry to hear that, Slim. Mr. Savage, are you intentionally going against every decision that I say I want to make? I'm just curious. Because you've disagreed with every single decision that I've made, even the ones that I thought that you would go with. I mean, did they say... I mean, there's a rule against attacking your teammates. I'm pretty sure they said that already. Did they say that already? They may not have said that already. Alright. I seriously feel like Good Berry would do it, but Smart Berry, you're right. I'm sorry, but if you want to ask me anything, you're going to have to do it here, I say. There is no reaction from Layla after hearing my words, but there is no text either for several seconds. Very well, the writing says after a while. Then I will ask you the question here. There's a short pause before the next text appears. You're not really a Stillwater, are you, Barry? The writing says. Your new writing has suddenly made me aware of my surroundings. I take a quick glance to see if anyone is actually close enough to read what Layla is writing to me, and I notice that Wilhelm is moving a little closer to us since I began talking to the girl, and he now seems to be studying me closely. Of course I'm a Stillwater, I tell Layla. What would make you think otherwise? The fact that you are a Lysathi, Layla writes. Fine, I get it, I tell Layla. We'll go inside your cell. Layla smiles and she opens the door to her room. As we both go inside, Wilhelm watches me attentively with a slight smirk on his face. You really don't like to take no for an answer, do you? I ask Layla as she locks the door. I'm sorry, she writes, but you're the one who started it. Why wouldn't you come with me? Because I barely know you, I say. How is I supposed to know that you weren't luring me into a trap or something? I'm still not completely sure that this isn't a trap, actually. Oh, I guess they hadn't said it. Layla looks at me a bit shocked. A trap? Layla writes. What could I possibly gain from doing something like that? Aren't you aware that killing or critically injuring a member of your own division is against the rules? Not really, I tell her. Nobody bothered to tell me the rules of the arena before coming here. But it's one of the standard rules of all of the arenas of Varathia, Layla writes. I'm not from around here, remember? I say. Layla sighs, and she goes to sit on her bed. In that case, Layla writes, you'd better take care to also not harm the organizers or any of the spectators. That is against the rules as well. Are there any other standard arena rules that I should be aware of? I ask. Yes, Layla writes. Magic and ranged weapons are not allowed in the arena, and neither are items that can cast any spells. But don't worry, your stat booster doesn't count as a spellcasting item. The magic detectors in the arena will ignore it. The girl laughs when she sees the look on my face. Even her laughter is silent. Yes, I know about your stat device, Layla writes while smiling. How? I ask her. Layla pulls a small trinket out of her pocket and she shows it to me. It's a stat device, just like my own. You see, my stat booster is a little special, Layla writes. Not only does it allow me to transform my thoughts into written words at will, but it also lets me know when there are other stat devices in my area. My father is the one who made these modifications. When you first came here, I almost bought your Stillwater story, but when I saw that you had a stat booster with you, I knew at once that you were a Lysathi. Then there would have been no point in carrying such a device with you unless you were a part of the only race that it was designed to work for. But the same goes for you too, doesn't it? I ask her, starting to finally understand what's going on. Which means that you are also a Lysathi. Layla nods. Then how come you were here in this arena? I say. I had the impression that the Lysathi have a higher status than nobility on this continent. Can't your father just pull some strings in order to have you released? Layla looks down on the ground for a few seconds before her new text appears. My father and I are outcasts, she writes. We aren't treated the same way as the other Lisathi. We've been in hiding for years, but a few months ago my father was sold to a noble and made into a slave. The reason why I'm here is because they caught me yesterday shortly after I managed to rescue him. I see, I say. After they enslaved him, I never thought I'd see him again, Layla writes, but a week ago, when the tournament began, I started receiving my first stat points. I finally felt like I had the chance to free him. I waited until I could upgrade my speed, strength, and combat technique stats to their maximum level of 3, and then I single-handedly defeated all of the guards holding my father prisoner. I only wished I'd waited until I could invest in toughness as well. Layla then shows me the bruises on her arms and legs. After I freed my father, Layla continued, I made him promise that even if I got captured, he'd go to Allendor without me, and wait for me there. Allendor is the only remaining city of Varathia where the Lisathi hold no power. In Allendor, we could be safe from them. But the city's guards caught me before I could get out of the city. I held them off until my father could escape, but I was already weakened from the previous battle and I couldn't beat them all. In the end, they tied me up and sent me here. I arrived in this cell yesterday in the afternoon, not long before you made your appearance. You mentioned that you had to wait until you could max your strength, speed, and combat technique, but that your current maximum level is 3, I say, but wouldn't that mean that you only had 9 available stat points until yesterday? Yes, and I still do, Layla writes, but that is the reason why I wanted to talk to you in private. When I first saw how quickly I was gaining stat points 1 week ago, I was amazed, but that was only because I didn't know about the tournament. Apparently, it had been announced many times in the past few months, but it's easy to miss these kinds of announcements when you mostly live on the outskirts of the city in order to avoid detection. It was yesterday in the afternoon when the Gnome King announced the first round's objectives that I first found out about the tournament. This made me realize how much magical energy there really is around us. I would have expected the stat booster to gather a lot more energy given the circumstances. What I wanted to ask you was this. How many stat points did you get to spend on your stats until now? 19 points, I answer her. 19? Layla writes, looking somewhat shocked. She pauses. Then I suppose my assumption was correct, Layla writes. It really is harder for a stat booster to collect energy inside the city. I've been noticing that too, I tell her. I've only gotten 2 points since I entered the city, but I used to get points a lot faster before unless I was traveling through completely deserted areas. Maybe it's just because there aren't many mages from the tournament who found their way to the city? Perhaps, Layla writes. Or perhaps it's because the other stat devices... Or perhaps it's because there are other stat device wielders in the city, and the energy is being split equally among us. You think there might be other Lisathi using stat devices in the city? I ask her. I don't know, Layla writes. It's a possibility. Can I have a look at your stat booster, please? Yeah, sure, I guess, I say as I take my stat device from out of my pocket and show it to her. The girl gives the stat device one long pondering look before she writes again. Thank you, Layla writes. I wanted to see how fast your stat booster is gathering energy compared to mine. Yours is working a little better, but not enough to justify a 10 points difference between us. You can tell all that just by looking at it? I ask her. No, of course not, Layla writes. Not by looking. I can tell by sensing the flow of magical by the flow of magical energy surrounding it. Can't you? Well, guess I can sort of feel the flow of it, I say, but there's no way I could tell which one of our two devices is gathering more than the other. That's strange, Layla writes. If you can't even tell the difference between our two devices, then how did you know that the stat booster was designed to work for Lisathi before coming to this tournament? From what you've told me, it doesn't seem like you were acquainted with any of the other Lisathis, so you must have discovered it on your own somehow. Unless... Layla pauses. Unless you had absolutely no idea how powerful the devices would really be. Layla continues, and you are planning to keep pretending that you are a Stillwater until the end of the tournament, with your stat device only as a backup plan. What do you mean? Of course I knew that the device works better for Lisathi. Actually, to be honest, before coming here, I didn't even know I was a Lisathi. Okay, I need to take a restroom break. She already knows the truth. I think Smartberry is going to pick this one, so this is one I'm probably going to pick unless you can give me a true justification why good Smartberry would pick the other one. When I get back from the break. So, I will be right back, and I'm going to pause the recording. Okay. I'm going to pause the recording for a second, and then I'll be back. Yeah, I need to use the restroom, so I'll be right back. Cool. What did I miss? Second one? Sure. You've been listening but not here enough to make judgment. Your call. Guess I don't know the whole story as I've missed the first part. I suppose, Mr. Kennedy. I mean, everyone who's listening to this, I feel like, has missed things. Unless they're, unless they listen to the YouTube recordings that I have, since I upload everything. But I have already played it, so I know. This one doesn't really affect too much, but since I'm trying to do good smart, and clearly she already knows the truth, I think this one is the better option. So, and since this is the one you picked, this is the one I'm gonna go with. Wait, did I interrupt your game of tic-tac-toe? Did you want to finish your game? No, it's already restarted. Cool. Actually, to be honest, before coming here, I didn't even know I was Lisathi. You mean you thought you were a human? Layla writes. Yeah, that's what I meant, I say. Layla starts to giggle silently while covering her mouth with her hand. I can't believe how crazy you are, Layla writes. No one in their right mind would even think of trying to bluff their way through a tournament like this. Now I understand why you seem so calm, even after you've heard that the arena owner is preparing for us. This is just another regular day for you, isn't it? Well, I don't know if I'd go as far to call it regular, I say. This is only the third time I've been thrown into a prison since I came to Varathia. There's still room for improvement. Hey, you two! I hear a guard calling from the window of Layla's cell. You can have all the private conversations you want on your own free time. This is the recreation period. Get back outside. Aye, sir, I say, and we both head back towards the recreation area. Once we're out, we both get back to our original positions without saying another word to each other. We've already said what we needed to say, and there was no reason to give Wilhelm any more opportunities to spy on our conversations. The rest of the recreation period was spent in silence. There was nothing for us to discuss about the upcoming fights, so nobody seemed to be in the mood for idle chatter. Since we couldn't just stand and do nothing for 2 hours, each of us tried to find something to occupy our time with. Bruce started doing push-ups, Wilhelm chose to sharpen his dagger, I spent my time reading from my notebook, and the two thugs decided to play some dice. Layla seemed to be the only one content with simply standing there, gazing at an empty wall in front of her until the recreation period ended. As soon as the recreation period was over, we all went quietly back to our cells. I continued to read from my notebook for a few more hours after leaving the recreation area. I've been reading through my notes about various creatures I've come across in my studies, but there's so many of them that it's difficult to memorize all of the information by heart. I still remember the day when I enchanted this notebook. It was the day when I decided to begin my journey around the world in hopes of finding a way to become a mage. The enchantment cost me a fortune, but it was still a lot cheaper than enchanting a backpack, and it was more than what I needed for my intents and purposes. A notepad with an endless number of pages. Was there any other tool that could have served me better in my quest for knowledge? At the beginning of this book, he basically says he's completely ordinary, no special skills, no magic, and no education. I think he kind of undersold himself. What do you guys think? This seems like may have not gone to school, but he's got an education behind him. Alright, I need to finish up soon, but I'll try and finish this section. I don't think I'll finish the chapter. I skimmed through the pages again. This is what he said to us, not what he said in general. This is how he described himself, like, in his inner thoughts. I skimmed through the pages again, trying to guess which creatures the arena's owner is more likely to throw at us. There are harpies, wargs, wyverns, three-headed hounds, mammoths, giant spiders, giant eagles. The list is endless. And let's not forget that each type of creature has its own subcategories, and that cannot be ignored because they are sometimes wildly different from each other. You can have red spiders, green spiders, white-spotted black spiders, and even 10-legged spiders, each of them with their own unique behaviors and weaknesses. Now that I think about it, Bruce mentioned that the arena's owner was fond of dangerous creatures, but does that mean that he might be keeping monsters of the humanoid type here as well? Monsters might be treated as if they are mindless creatures by most people, but the reality is a little different. Monsters of the humanoid variety are generally much more intelligent than the average creature. Some of them are even organized in tribes, and they can communicate advanced information with each other through their own languages, even if most of them don't speak common. The ogres from the fort were one such example. If they have any monsters here that are as strong as the ogre captain or the shaman, then we might be in for one hell of a fight. As I sit on my bed and read, I suddenly hear a man's voice coming from my cell's window. "Greetings," the voice says. I turn around to see if I can get a glimpse of the man's face, but he is hiding behind the wall outside my cell. "Do I know you?" I ask him. "No," the voice says, "but I heard that there was a fellow Lasathi among the prisoners who were brought here yesterday evening, so I came to pay you a visit." "A fellow Lasathi, you say?" I tell him. "Yes," the voice says, "I am here to offer you a deal. Normally, we do not deal with criminals, but since you are Lasathi, I believe that it's only fair to give you a second chance." He pauses. "Go on," I say. "You see," the voice continues, "we couldn't help but notice that the king of Thilius seems to have placed an unusual amount of trust in you and your companions. Enough trust to invite you into his secret room below the throne. That is not the kind of invitation that is not the kind of invitation that is acquired easily." He pauses again to see if I have anything to say. He waits for a few more seconds, and then he continues from where he left off. "The deal that we want to offer you is simple," the voice says. "All you need to do is convince the king to let you into his secret room again, while carrying out all you need to do is to convince the king to let you into his secret room again while carrying one of our devices." "Is this device of yours a bomb, by any chance?" I ask him. The voice laughs softly. Of course not," he says. If we wanted to assassinate the king, I assure you that there would be a much easier, risk-free methods to use in order to get the job done." "Then what is it you are trying to do?" "We are trying to subtly interfere with the way that one of the gnome's own devices works. One of the gnome king's inventions is currently making his secret room completely soundproof, which stops us from listening in on his private conversations. However, at the moment we do not have any agents that the king trusts enough to allow them access to his secret room. This is why we turn to you. We are not asking that you do this for free, of course. There are ways in which we could make your fights here in the arena much easier for you. All you need to do is agree to help us and we can take care of the rest. There's no way that I could agree to this deal after I already convinced everyone to help me get rid of the king. In order to help me rid the king of the Lasathi and his city. Then again, this king is saying this guy is saying that all I need to do in order to get my reward is to agree to help him. Since I'm going to attack them later anyways, I guess I wouldn't have much to lose if I lied to him now. Lie to the Lasathi about accepting the deal and betray them later, refuse the Lasathi's offer. Okay, so I feel like I'm trying to decide if I want to override that decision, because I feel like Goodberry would refuse the offer, but it's Good Smartberry. I feel like Smartberry would lie, because he's offering help to make it easier. See, that's what I'm saying, Dome Splitter, thank you so much for the first time chat. Yeah, I feel like smart berries. I've said that I will override decisions if it follows the path of the character that I'm picking. 'Cause yeah. I'm gonna go with this one, because this is the smart berry, I think. Well, Mr. Lasathi, sir, I guess you've got yourself a deal, I say. How are you doing? Savvy, I'm glad you agree. I was worried that I might upset you by overriding you. Also, Dumb Splitter, how are you doing tonight? Thank you for joining. Welcome in. I guess you've got yourself a deal, I say. Excellent, the Lasathi says. Here's the device that I told you about. The Lasathi throws a small piece of metal through the window of my room. It looks rather ordinary, except for a few engravings on it. Make sure that you don't lose it, the Lasathi says. It would be difficult to obtain a spare. I can hear the Lasathi moving to leave. Oh, he says, and you should be expecting a last-minute addition to your team before the arena event begins. He will take care of most of your problems. With these last words, the Lasathi makes his departure. I wait for a minute to make sure that he's gone for good, and then I get back to reading my notebook. Dome Splitter, I'm glad you like the format. It is cool. I really like this story. And I'm excited to share it with you guys. And I have so much respect for the author. He's still writing it. The next chapter of the third book is supposed to be coming out soon, and it left on such a cool area, such a cool spot. And I can't wait. And I can't wait for us to get there. Yeah. Hearing check successful level 3. Not long after the Lasathi leaves, I start to hear some voices in a distant hallway outside my cell. I recognize one of the voices as that of the guard who woke me up this morning. Hey, did you hear about this morning's meeting? The guard says. The one between the owner and the ambassador? The other voice says. Yeah, the guard says. I heard that they're bringing out the Minotaur in round 2. The Minotaur? The other voice asks, shocked. You mean the undefeated champion of the arena? The one and only, the guard says. And I heard that they're also going to use the giant scorpions and the manticores for round 1. What about round 3? The other voice says. Will there still be duels between the gladiators? Yeah, the survivors will... Sorry. What about round 3? The other voice says. Will there still be duels between the gladiators? Yeah, the survivors will have to fight each other in one-on-one duels at the end, the guard says, but nobody is expecting any of them to make it past round 1. The last phrase was barely audible as the guards were getting further and further away from me while they talked. The last thing I heard from them is the roaring of their laughter as their voices fade away completely. Scorpions and manticores, huh? It's a good thing that I've got extensive notes written about them in my notebook. At least we won't go in completely unprepared. I spend the rest of the afternoon reading from my notes. When I felt like taking a break, I called Darren and Kate and Hadrick through the transceivers to find to find out how they were doing. Darren told me that he couldn't stand any of his teammates and that they were all cowardly mercenaries who had come here to make easy money. Kate said that she almost killed one of her teammates during the recreation period, and that she only stopped when she found out that it was against the rules. No one had tried to pick a fight with her since. Hadrick seemed to be doing a little better. From what he told me, he'd already made most of his teammates into his drinking buddies, and they were spending a lot more time in the recreation area than the 2 daily hours they were required to. I also made sure to tell my friends everything that I heard from the 2 guards earlier, as well as the weaknesses and behaviors of each type of scorpions and manticores that I knew of. Hopefully this information will help them out in some way. After I finished talking to everyone, I got back to my reading, and I kept doing that until later in the evening, when I was interrupted by the creak of a door and by the sound of a familiar voice. "Farewell," I hear the disinterested voice of the desk worker coming in from the recreation area as a door slams shut. I immediately realize what this means, and I open the door of my cell to see the newest member of our division who the newest member of our division is. The man who just entered the recreation area is simply radiating magical energy, and he makes no attempt at hiding it. However, he does not appear to be one of the tournament's participants, because I'm seeing a warning sign above his head, telling me not to hurt him. He must be one of the local mages. Judging by the look on his face, it's clear that he didn't come here of his own accord. It's clear that he didn't come here of his own free will, so he's likely been sent here because he broke the Varathian law in some way. The mage notices me, but he does not bother to acknowledge my presence, and he goes directly to his room. The rest of the day was mostly uneventful, except for a drunk call that I got from Hadrick on the transceiver, who insisted on passing me to one of his teammates because of the funny way in which he impersonated a famous noble from the Western continent. The next morning, I was woken up by the same guard from the previous day, telling me that the recreation period had started. "Wakey, wakey," the guard says. "It's recreation time." I open the door to my cell and start heading towards the empty area of the recreation room, just like yesterday. As I walk, I overhear the 2 thugs from my division talking loudly, several feet from me, and I turn around to see what's going on. It looks like they're talking to Layla, as she is casually leaning with her back against the wall, watching them silently. "Hey, princess," one of the thugs says, "how about you take us both to your room like you did with the Stillwater yesterday?" "Yeah," the other thug says. "We have some very important tactical information that we'd like to discuss with you." Layla continues to look at them without saying anything. The first thug who spoke concludes that he wasn't being intimidating enough, so he now places both of his hands on the wall behind her as he leans closer to her face. "Listen, princess," the thug says, "you can drop the silent act. I know you can understand me, so you'd better wise up and do what I say, or else I'm going to hurt you so bad that you'll wish you—" The thug didn't get to finish his sentence because Layla decided she's had enough, and she punched him so hard in the stomach that the man fell down and started rolling on the floor from the pain. "You bitch," the other thug says as he pulls out his knife, but he doesn't get a chance to use it because a sudden kick from Layla sends him flying into a nearby wall. "By the gods, that was amazing!" we hear Bruce shout from the other end of the room. He rushes over to Layla and he grabs her by both her shoulders. Layla looks a bit shocked, but she quickly realizes that there is no ill intent behind the man's actions, so she doesn't attack him. With strength like that, you could take out a small battalion by yourself, Bruce says enthusiastically. How did they even manage to capture you? Suddenly, Bruce realizes that he got carried away too much, and he releases Layla from his grasp. I'm sorry, Bruce says. I know that you don't like to talk, but I just wanted you to know that I've got your back. Whenever you feel like you're in a pinch in the arena, remember that you can count on me to help. That's all I wanted to say. Savvy, yeah, hell yeah, they definitely deserved it. Layla looks a little confused, but she nods slowly in acknowledgement of his words. All right then, Bruce says. I'll be over there if you need me. He then turns away from her and he goes back to his end of the room. The thug that got punched in the stomach managed to get back on his feet, and he's now rushing towards his fallen comrade, who still hasn't woken up from his collision with the wall. Eventually he manages to wake him up, and then they both walk towards their corner of the room without even daring to glance towards Layla on their way back. Nothing else happens during the 2-hour-long recreation period. The mage from yesterday isolated himself just like everyone else, and he hasn't exchanged a single word with anyone. I would have expected Wilhelm to welcome him to the division like he did with me, but it seems that he didn't consider him worth the bother. After we return to our cells, I sit on my bed and I open my notebook. Not long after I start reading, I hear 3 light knocks on my door. Who is it? I ask. There is no answer. A few seconds later, there are 3 more knocks on the door, which are a little louder than the last ones. Open the door, tell them I'm not opening the door until I get an answer. Well, I feel like this could go either way, but we do know that Layla can't speak. There's no pressure to answer, as always, but if you guys would like to answer, would like to weigh in here, I'm giving you guys a minute to decide. And I will be ending soon. I don't know if you can tell, but my voice is getting sore. I have been reading for an hour and a half. Marshming. Alright, sounds good. Well, Smartberry, we know that the rules of the arena are that the guards wouldn't attack him, and it's against the law to attack him, and if anyone in his division tries to attack him and severely wound him, that is against the rules of the arena, and they will probably be killed or severely punished for it. So there's no reason for anyone to attack him in this area, and we know that a potential ally can't speak, so she wouldn't be able to say anything anyways. So I don't see any reason for him to not open the door. The door is locked. Okay, I'll be right there, I say as I put my notebook down and get up from the bed. When I open the door, I am surprised to see that my mysterious visitor is in fact Layla. Oh, it's you, I say. Layla doesn't say anything, but I see her blue writing form in front of her as usual. Can you come with me? Layla writes. There's something I need to show you. Sure, I say. Let me lock the door. After I'm done locking the door behind me, I follow Layla, and we head towards her cell. Once we're both inside her room, she locks the door and she points towards the wall behind her bed. And her blue and her blue writing appears in front of her once again. Please place your hand on the wall and tell me if you feel anything special, Layla writes. I place my hand on the wall like she says, but I don't feel anything. Could you give me some sort of hint? I say. What am I looking for exactly? Don't try to look, Layla writes. You need to feel it. Try concentrating your magical sense on your hand as you are touching the wall, and you will understand what I mean. As I do what Layla says, I suddenly realize that the wall is somehow resonating perfectly with my magical aura, and that it's reacting directly to my touch. Okay, you're right, I tell her. There's definitely more to this wall than you can tell just by looking. But it's not doing anything. Even if it's reacting directly to my touch, I feel like it's still waiting for something to happen. Layla nods. Lime Tree State, welcome in. Thank you so much for the follow. How are you doing today? I hope you're enjoying this. By the way, I know we've got a few new people here. I know it's in the middle of the story, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Layla nods. That's because the wall on the opposite side of the room is made exactly the same way. Layla writes, I think that these walls react directly to our Lisathi auras, and that they are supposed to act as switches that need to be pressed at the same time by two different Lisathi. Hello. Switches for what? I ask. For opening a passage to the underground caverns beneath these tunnels, Layla writes. I've seen these kinds of switches before, in other buildings made by the Lisathi. They always open up secret passages, and I've heard that the caverns below us are where the arena owner is keeping all of the creatures locked up. If we could get a quick look, we would at least know what we'll be going up against. Or even better, we could sabotage the whole show by killing the creatures one by one while they are in their cages, instead of fighting them all at once in the arena. That does sound tempting, I say, but what if they catch us? Won't they be able to disqualify us for cheating? There are no rules that say we can't kill the creatures before the arena event starts. The arena event begins, Layla writes. However, Layla pauses. However what? I ask. However, Layla continues, the rules of the arena do state that the safety of the participants is not guaranteed outside of the arena designated for their division. So what you're saying is that if they catch us in the act, they can unleash all of their beasts upon us without any restraint. Layla nods. We can just go take a look, Layla writes, and if we see that there are too many guards, we'll go back to our cells. I pause a bit to think. All right, I say. We'll take one look, and we can decide after that. Layla nods again. She then goes to the other end of the room near the door, extending her hand towards the wall. Are you ready? She writes. Okay. Since we're moving on to another section... Oh, Lime Tree State, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's been a 6-hour stream, and I've been reading for over an hour and a half now. So, since we're moving on to another section, I am going to be ending the stream here. So I'm going to save. Book 1, Chapter 2. load game to make sure full. Then I'm going to transfer because I have trust issues. Transfer achievements to cloud. Transfer local saves, so transfer checkpoint. That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I only have 7 or 8, but whatever. 9. Cloud. Back. Save load. Load. Cool. Quit game. I think there's 18 save slots. Okay. You said it. Okay, I'm glad you heard that I was going to end. I feel bad when people follow and join like right as I'm ending when I know that that's what they're joining for. Okay. So, I record separately from the stream so I can upload it separately. So I am going to end the recording here now, but I'm not going to end the stream quite yet. So again, thank you everyone for listening. This app is free on both Android and iOS, and I highly recommend it if you like the story and would like to play it for yourself, because there's a lot of different paths that you can take. Alright, and yeah, have a good day or night, everyone who is watching this recording.